And we established on this program last week that right now, there is, I don't know if an inquiry is the best word to use, but I suppose technically it is an inquiry underway into the system that our third level institutions deploy when employing chaplains. Does that make sense? Hopefully it does. We established last week that in a number of our third level institutions across the country, there are chaplains paid fairly decent salary to do what they do. They do a lot of pastoral work, and they're there to help and assist students when the need arises, and in some cases they celebrate Mass, and I'm sure they hear confessions. But I'm told not all chaplains are Catholic priests, and there is an inquiry now underway. It was ordered by the Minister for Education, and she wants the inquiry to investigate into the way public funds are used to pay for third level college chaplains, some of whom receive close on €50,000 a year. And last week on the show we had Father Shay Casey, and Father Shay is attached. He's actually the chaplain at the Athlone Institute of Technology, and he came on to talk about the work that he and his colleagues do, and they do great work, there's no doubt about that. And when I put it to him that maybe in future all chaplaincy roles should be offered to, should be an open competition. In other words, they should not be offered exclusively to members of the priesthood. It should not be a role that's exclusive to the Catholic Church. It should be an open competition, salaried, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a priest who takes up the role. And he agreed with that, to be fair, wholeheartedly. But in the interests of balance, we always believe on this show that everybody is entitled to the right of reply. And John Hamill from Monaghan, who is also a member of Atheist Ireland, was listening to that interview, and he's with me now on the line. Good morning to you.
Morning, Joe. How are things?
Not too bad at all. So you responded, you were listening to the interview, and you take issue with some of what was said last week in that interview with Father Shay Casey.
Yes, indeed. And firstly, thanks for allowing the opportunity for some balance. That's very fair of you, as always, Joe. Appreciate that. I suppose one of the things that Father Casey said that I took particular umbrage with related to the discussion around the other things that chaplains do, which aren't just related to saying Mass. So you very reasonably asked him, Joe, about that work, and Father Casey recounted many stories of students in financial difficulty, and he said that in response, we set up a student assistance fund. Now, Father Casey knows that he had absolutely nothing to do with setting up the student assistance fund, and nor did the Catholic Church. This fund comes from the Irish government with help from the European Social Fund under the Human Capital Investment Programme. In fact, not only does the Church not contribute a single cent to that fund, the Church is a drain on the student services budgets. So Father Casey doesn't...
How do you mean the Church is a drain on the student services budget?
Because Father Casey doesn't go to Athlone IT with cheques and donations from the Church to help out students in need. He comes with invoices from the Church. He is a taker from the student services budget.
How do you mean with invoices? How do you mean with invoices? You mean for his services?
Yeah, the Catholic Church...
He's paid a measly sum of €25,000.
He is awarded a contract without tender or advertisement, and the Catholic Church...
Yeah, but to be fair now, John, let's not go back on what is old news. He was the first to admit last week during the interview that going forward in future, an open competition should be held, and this job should not be exclusive to the Catholic Church.
Well, that's another problem with what he said. But just let's.
Okay, so you have established that the student assistant fund that he referred to the other day in his interview is actually a government-funded initiative, but maybe he has responsibility for managing that fund at Athlone IT.
Well, there are lots of colleges around the country that manage that fund perfectly capably, and they don't require a Roman Catholic priest to do it. And there are chaplains in this country earning more than €60,000 per annum. So a lot of these salaries are very healthy indeed, and all of that cash sum comes from student services budgets. So there are no students in financial difficulty getting €60,000 from Father Casey. And for Father Casey to turn up on radio and say, we set up this fund, and I think he's a bit of a cheek to present this as some kind of Catholic Church philanthropy. The Catholic Church takes €1.5 million every year out of student services budgets in Ireland, and the students in financial difficulty.
But in return, they're providing pastoral advice, pastoral care, a shoulder to lean on. They're a conduit at times between the college authorities and the student. And as you heard him say, he's organising Christmas dinners on a Sunday for students who are probably away from home. He's on invitation. He's travelling to see students who are depressed, who are in need of pastoral care, who are in need of a shoulder to cry on, and he is there almost 24/7 to provide that help, guidance, and assistance.
Well, this is the other problem. Under freedom of information, Atheist Ireland obtained metrics from the colleges on the work of both counsellors and chaplains. And for counsellors, the metrics typically included tables and pie charts and bar charts to beat the band, and I sent some of that material to your team at Shannonside. So counsellors will carefully track what kind of issues are being reported by students and what kind of difficulties there are so they can be quantified and properly addressed. But for the chaplains, there are usually no metrics at all. And in the cases where there are metrics, the metrics used by the chaplains themselves are in things like mass attendance. And the mass attendance figures for chaplains are abysmal. In Cork IT, there are 12,000 students. The chaplain at Cork IT is a Catholic priest paid €55,000 per year, and he himself reported attendance of his services of 4. Now,
but I made the point, did I not, last week, that, to measure the value of a chaplaincy service on the numbers that attend Mass on any given day. Now, that's a poor measurement to go by, is it not?
That's the measurement that the chaplains themselves use. If you go and ask a counsellor who does all the other pastoral work that you described, they will give you figures to beat the band about exactly what kind of issues the students have and how they address each. If you go and ask the chaplains, the only figures that they have are for things like mass attendance. And actually, that's a very reasonable metric. The chaplain only has the job because he was appointed by a bishop, because he's a Roman Catholic priest. Most of the chaplains say Mass every single day.
That's because for years and years and years and years and years, why am I here defending the Catholic Church? But it's a fact. There was nobody there to do the work. There was nobody suitably qualified to do the work. And I think what you're seeing now is the times they are changing. And Father Shea is the first to admit that in time, he said himself, he's coming to the end of his tenure, and I'm sure that his position will be openly advertised and it'll be an open competition.
Well, actually, that's not the position of the church, because as Father Casey said, there's only one chaplain in the country who was appointed by open competition. That's in Castlebar, and that was in 2012. And since then, all of the annual services contracts for all of the chaplains have to be renewed every single year.
But the investigation or the inquiry is now underway, is it not? To make sure that for the money we spend on chaplaincy services in our third level institutions, to make sure that they're well spent.
Well, that's the point at the minute. We don't know whether they're well spent. So Father Casey can tell you about all the great things that he does and how great a job he's doing, but we don't know who the best candidate for the job is. Because the appointment's made by a bishop, you automatically exclude all non-Catholics and actually all women as well. So are you sure, Joe, that there are no female pastoral carers who could do the same job or better as Father Casey? I'm not. I think there are plenty of very highly qualified female pastoral carers in Ireland, but the only reason they're excluded from those publicly funded jobs is because the Catholic Church thinks that the creator of the universe wants them to discriminate against women in ordinations. And if that's the view of bishops, they're perfectly entitled to discriminate against women in their own sacraments.
You know as well as I do, there are many women in the Catholic Church. Yes, I agree with you. There's still an issue there when it comes to ordaining women as priests, but there are many women who do marvelous work under the auspices of the Catholic Church in the area of pastoral care, etc. So, I mean, that point also has to be made.
There are 13 full-time chaplains in the Institutes of Technology in Ireland. 12 of them are Roman Catholic priests. So if you're a female pastoral care worker in Ireland, even if you're a devout Catholic, you are excluded from those publicly funded jobs unless you can convince the Holy See that the creator of the universe doesn't want to discriminate against women.
I'm reliably informed that Sligo IT has a Roman Catholic priest and a Church of Ireland minister and a lay chaplain. Is that true? I don't know. But anyway, look, you see, it's all rather skewed. The figures that were published last week in the Irish Times, I think Father Shea, and I can only go by his word, he did say on this show last week that the figures are skewed in that some chaplains are doubling up as lecturers, are they not? And in his case, as he said, he's on a measly €25,000, but he's obviously not in it for the money. But I think at the end of the day, we've yet to see the results of this inquiry that are, or the findings of this inquiry that has been called or has been commissioned by the Minister for Education. But in future going forward, are you satisfied now that these positions will be openly advertised, there will be an open competition, and may the best person win regardless of their faith?
Well, that has been the position of the department all along. So if you look at the answers to parliamentary questions, the minister and the department have all said that these roles should be appointed using the public appointment service. But even though that's been the position of the department all along, the colleges just hand over €1.5 million per year every year to Roman Catholic bishops. So this is the richest church in the world that fills its pockets with €1.5 million every year of public money, and only after the church gets its 1.5 million, then the students themselves can have some of the student services budget after that. And based on the church going to the colleges with their hands out to take money, not put money in, the churches go to the colleges and take money out. And then after that, we have Father Casey on telling us that this is some kind of philanthropic exercise on behalf of the church. I really think he's got some cheek. You know, if he wants to see more money going to students in difficulty, he can sit at home and swing the turbo, because there's nobody going to the masses that these chaplains put on. All they're doing is taking money out of the system.
That's it. You've had your say. That's what this show is all about. Thanks for that. That's John Hamill there from Atheist Ireland. You can respond accordingly.